Tonight, we're going to talk about lawsuits and the potential for them, and the fact that if you stay in this business long enough, you're probably going to have one or two if you're unlucky. I've been relatively lucky in my career. I've never had a lawsuit that one either materialized or I lost. So, but I wouldn't bank on that for everyone because it's just not realistic. Anyway, this is part one. We're going to continue next month with the rest of it. So you tried your best. You have an unbreakable contract and you still ended up in court. How the hell did that happen? Well, don't feel bad. There's no such thing as an unbreakable contract. Any contract can be broken if somebody wants to try hard enough. As a matter of fact, you're more likely to get a lawsuit if you're dealing with a client who's also an attorney, because they love contracts. They love playing with them. Anyone can, for any reason, haul you into court for whatever perceived grievance they may have against you. That's the nature of the world we live in today. Small claims court covers anywhere from $0 to $7,500. County court covers anywhere from $7,501 to $15,000. And then we have either civil or criminal where there's no limit at all. Typically, we're going to be involved, if we're involved at all, with civil matters, not criminal matters, although criminal can come into the picture depending on how dishonest you might be. Now, you want to remember that judges and courts can only levy dollar amounts if you lose, whereas if you go to mediation or some other form of grievance addressing, you might be able to get away with other than having to pay out money. In mediation, anything that's agreed to by the parties involved is considered legal and binding. And that could be anything from an apology, giving the aggrieved party 10 chickens, a baby pig, whatever works amongst the parties is considered legal and binding. But in regular court, only money speaks. So we have our agreement. Hopefully you all have agreements. Don't leave home without them. And the expectations of our service and what we're going to perform is explained and clarified in the expectation contract. If it isn't, you should have yours revised so it does. Now, we have our perception as home inspectors of what we're going to be accomplishing when we do an inspection, but the client, which changes for every inspection, is going to have a different reality, and those two need to mesh together. Otherwise, there's no understanding of what's going to happen. Did your client understand the implications of your service? If they don't understand what you're doing, you don't have a valid contract. Okay, so they have to agree to the contract. They usually do that by signing it and dating it. Otherwise, there's no agreement. It has to be a meeting of the minds. That's a technical term. Were limitations explained in your agreement? And by the way, you notice I use the term agreement. I don't use the word contract. Contract is scary, whereas agreement is a friendly term. Means exactly the same thing, however. So you need to put your limitations in there as well as what you're going to do, and also what you're not going to do. Was there a clearly defined visual inspection? Did you do your job? Did you do what your contract said you would do? If you didn't, then you're going to be in trouble. So do what your contract says and do it to the best of your ability, and you'll be protected to a certain extent. So does your agreement offer a procedure for addressing grievances? It's important that you spell that out in your agreement so that you have a certain amount of control over what's going to be happening if there's an agreement that pops up. So you need a procedure in place to handle complaints. And typically that procedure is, it starts in your agreement what the client should do to alert you if they have an issue. Okay, so you need to spell that out. If your client, if John Doe has a grievance against you, then there has to be a procedure he follows to alert you of what the grievance is so you can address it. Your agreement should state what is needed to file a complaint. And I'm not talking about a complaint with the court. I'm talking about filing a complaint with you, the home inspector. You should make it clear that by not following this procedure, it absolves you of any liability. That's very important. What you don't want to, the phone call you don't want to get is, you missed the $15,000 in damage in the bathroom shower. We went ahead and fixed it, and now you have to pay the bill. You don't want that to happen. You want control over that. And by following the procedure, that gives you control. In other words, the client who has the grievance can't go ahead and do something and send you a bill. You have to have the ability to evaluate it on your own first before they make any changes. The procedure should, 1, include a phone call, followed by 2, a written letter or email listing the issues. Why the phone call? Because they're going to be pissed off. They need to vent. And it might be something simple that can be fixed over the phone anyway. So let them set the procedure in place where they call you first. They could do that immediately or as soon as you get back to the office. And you should be quick about returning their calls if they leave you a message, because they're only going to get more angry if you don't. And talk to them on the phone. Let them explain what it is they're upset about. Maybe it's something that can be fixed on the phone. Maybe it's something where you have to set them an appointment to go look at it. But either way, they vented. They're going to be a lot calmer after their conversation and less likely to be more upset when they finally meet you, if they haven't done it already. Requesting a phone call and written letter does 2 things. 1, the phone calls allows for immediate venting and immediate heads up as to what the issue might be. Allows the client to get it off their chest so they calm down. Allows for possible resolution over the phone if it's possible to do that. 2, a written letter or email acts to document the issue. That allows for everyone to calm down and think, because it's written down in an email or on a letter, and it creates a record of events. So once you address, once you address those records of events, they can't add stuff on later, because then you could say, well, why didn't you bring it up originally? Okay, so there's no double dipping as far as getting money out of you. That's important. A phone call may get resolved on the phone. If it's something simple or a misunderstanding, phone calls allow for immediate communication. A written letter or email allows time for thoughtful consideration of the issues. If other things pop up later, we can ask why they were not included originally in the complaint and deal with them accordingly. This assumes the client is not just fishing for more money and that the additional items are legitimate. The inspector-client relationship. The client should have realistic expectations via the agreement, which helps to act client expectation by clarifying the scope of the inspection. It's a comprehensive document stating what was inspected, what was not inspected, and what may be discovered, as well as what was not included and why. It provides direction regarding what to do next and how to correct a perceived wrong. Neither the inspector nor the report can think for the client. Now, this might sound like a simplistic comment, but actually I've had experience doing this, trying to anticipate what my client wanted instead of letting them decide for themselves. I learned the hard way and I don't do it anymore, because you have no idea what direction they're coming from when they're buying a property. You might think you do, but you don't. They have their own ideas on what they're looking for, and it may sound completely alien to you if they tell you. So let them make their own decisions. Give them the information to do that, and then stop. The report can provide quality information to assist the client in making an informed decision, which is what we're there to do. Ultimately, the client must make their own choices. Allow them to do that, regardless of how we or they feel personally. I point this out because oftentimes clients tend to blame us after the fact for not making a decision for them. That's not our job. That's not what they hired us to do. Watch what you say during the inspection. How you react to a situation reflects on you and impacts the client as well as others that might be in the vicinity of your conversation. Real estate agents, for example. Offhand comments can come back to haunt you. They can also cost you future business. This advice also applies to complaint conversations. Never comment on a complaint until a visual examination is performed first by appointment. Why is this person yelling at me? You have a complainant on the phone. Give the client time to explain the issue and vent. Ask questions that may clarify a mental picture for you. Is it simple and you know exactly what the issue is? Can it be put to rest over the phone? No, then set up an appointment as soon as possible. Arrive on time with the original report, a notebook for taking notes, a camera, and an unbiased witness if you can find one. And that shouldn't be that hard to find. What's a typical example of an unbiased witness? How about it's a AC issue, so you might want to get an AC contractor to come along with you. It's an electrical issue, you might want to get an electrician to come along with you. That way they can advise you as to whether or not the complaint has any validity to it. One of the fastest and most effective ways to diffuse customer anger is to agree with them, saying, you've got the right to be angry or mad, or I can understand why you're upset. I would be also. It can literally stop an upset client in their tracks. Their case has been made. The pushback they expected never happened, so they calm down. And if the next thing you say is, let's see what we can do to make it right, you'll immediately take the discussion from negative complaining to constructive problem solving. Now let's start at the beginning. You can do this without admitting guilt, wrongdoing, or complicity.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Question. If you're a sole proprietor, who would be the witness? Who would a witness be?
Well, I'm a sole proprietor. I have an issue. I've had the opportunity a few times in my career to have an AC guy come with me, a licensed guy. And even though the complaint was with me, and this was an attorney complaining, by the way, I looked at the problem he was complaining about. I had the AC guy look at it. He was at my side. I said, what do you think? He gave me his opinion, and I made a decision about what I was going to do about it. You could have an employee, if you got a multi-inspector firm, you can have an employee go with you. It's not as good as, because they're working for you, but it's a second opinion regardless. Your best bet is to get somebody who's not connected to your business, because they have no dog in that fight, so to speak.
Gotcha.
It's a good idea also to bring a blank check and a release form. More about this later. You arrive on site to find the issue has been repaired and the client is holding an invoice for whatever amount, thousands of dollars usually. You're done. The agreement has been violated by not allowing you the opportunity to evaluate the issue prior to repairs. You're not responsible. They signed the agreement. They agreed that they were going to let you know first. And if they violated that, then you're off the hook as far as I'm concerned. Can they still take you to court? Sure they can. But that's your defense. They agreed to the agreement and they violated the agreement. That should suffice in court. No guarantees, however. There's no way to tell which way the judge is going to go on this. You should keep in the back of your mind that judges tend to see any kind of professional, especially somebody who's licensed, to be the professional, to be the guy who knows it. And they tend to see the public or your client as a victim. Okay, so you need to keep that in the back of your mind. That's not necessarily something they're going to pass judgment on, but it's just human nature to think that, you're a professional home inspector. Well, you should have known better, that sort of thinking. So be aware of that. Depends on what kind of judge you get. Can you still be pulled into court? I answered that a minute ago. Yes, you can. Step 3, repairs were not made. Scenario number 1, you arrive on site and the client shows you what the issue is. Let's say it's blisters in the bottom of a hot tub. I don't know if you guys inspect hot tubs. I'm talking about the portable ones now. I talk about both, but we not only do built-in, we do portable hot tubs because there's so many of them here, and we charge extra for it. So in this case scenario, there was a portable hot tub on the rear porch of a house we were inspecting. It was full of water running, and the client asked us to inspect it. We did. It was fiberglass, which is typically what they are, and we found no issues with it. During the inspection, the tub was full and running. The client was at the inspection, says the tub was empty. Now, I happen to have my son with me with this particular inspection. He was an inspector as well. And I said, Scott, did you remember that tub being empty? Because I remember seeing water in it. He said, no, it's full of water and running. That's how we operated it. Okay. If the tub has not got water in it, we don't fill it up and run it. If it's got water in it, then we'll run it through its paces. So obviously the client's lying. He wants money. I know where he's coming from now. So do I pay or do I fight? Well, I said to the client, after explaining our position, he disagreed with it. So it was, he said, she said situation. I said to the client, I said, well, what do you think it's going to cost to fix those blisters? And he said, probably around 50, 60 bucks. I said, okay, I'm going to write you a check for 60 bucks, but you're going to sign this release form first, which he did. And I gave him a check. It's much, much better to get rid of the issue than try to fight over some legal technicalities in court because you're going to lose. It's much better just let it go. Let him go away with your 60 bucks as well worth the lack of headaches. But that's a business decision you guys have to make. Oh, sorry, 50 bucks. Scenario number 2, an AC contract. An AC condenser is not working 2 months after the inspection is done. The owner, formerly the client, wants a new condenser. He did not attend the inspection. Those are the worst kinds of clients, by the way. I'm sure you all realize that. Absentee clients are more likely to put you on the hot seat than people who attend the inspection, get to meet you, you get to talk to and explain things, and they understand what it is you're doing. They're a lot less likely to have a grievance, and if they do, they're a lot less likely to sue you over it. It's always going to be the absentee people that do that stuff. That's been my experience anyway. The owner I read that already. My witness, who is an AC contractor, says the condenser could have failed at any time, even though it was not old. It was 8 years old. The owner with the complaint was an attorney. Do we fight or flight? Gave him 350 bucks. That's what he wanted. He wanted 350 bucks. I wrote him a check. You can't win with an attorney. They're going to get you every time. Recap. Have a well-written, clear, balanced inspection agreement. This becomes a bargaining chip later. In the agreement, spell out particular concerns or exposures you feel you have. Address complaints promptly and in person. Bring a witness, a release, and a check. Don't forget to take pictures, a lot of pictures. They'll come in handy in court. Document everything, photos, notes, even conversations over the phone should be documented. Maintain mental clarity, maintain objectivity, make an informed decision whether to fight or flight. Remember, it's not about who is right or wrong. It's about money every time. If at all possible, you should never, ever, ever go to court unless you absolutely have to. It's a no-win situation.